welcome to Flooring Models Kit Review time. Today we got Zvezda's 1/72 MIG-29 Fulcrum. This is the 913 model. They've all got different designations, a bit like the block from the Western stuff. Easiest way on this one is this hump on the back, you can spot it. Now there does seem to have been a real big influx of 1/72 high quality, high detailed kits coming out of the Russian stuff. So MiG-29s, Su-27, things like that, from basically Zvezda and Trumpeter on the bandwagon as well as a couple of other manufacturers. But Zvezda have always had that thing for 1/72 stuff. Their Hind helicopters, built a few of those, absolutely beautiful, and some of their 1/72 scale modern stuff is as well. Very high quality. You can see down here, beautiful box art on this one showing MiG-29, and he's got a shark's mouth on it, so gets my vote straight away. Okay, quick look around the box. So as you can imagine, a lot of this is in Russian, but I'm just trying to see if there's any sort of English. Yeah, there's a little bit. We've got different languages down here, pretty much well covered. Little thing, colour callouts in Humbrol. There's a blast from the past. Okay, and looking around. So your kit number for this one is 7278. Okay, and a little bit more about the roads. Highly recommend their Hinds. They're absolutely lovely. Okay. And then this one has got some information on the back, as you can see down here. So down on there, we've got some of the actual build-up stuff in the raw, which again is another nice touch to see it in the raw, so you can see exactly what you're going to get at the end of the day. And as we can see down here, we've got some very nice weapons loadouts, fuel tanks, things like that. Okay. Now this is new. I haven't looked in the box because it has still got the star and it is sealed. So we're just going to, whoops, brand new blade in this. Don't cut the box, Laurie. Okay. So it's an open-ended box, but if I can get in, this is a little bit different because it may be open-ended, but it is sleeved. Beautiful touch. What does that mean? It means it's hard as nails in here, and it is which way up is what we've got to do, is get into here. So you could, I'm just wondering if you can get in the end like this, okay? Trim the top off, you've got a normal box for keeping all your bits and your parts in. Lovely little touch, okay? So down in here, we just grab the contents. Let me just pop that out of the way. Sorry, we need you back. Done these for a while. Okay, there we go. So, the bag itself is all in one bag, which isn't exactly very nice. Just wondering why it's done like that. It's the way it's sealed. We'll have a look at that in a moment. Got another little bag down there. Your usual call-outs for missing parts and all the rest of it. Your decals, which doesn't have a sheet on there. Okay, so the instructions are a little bit poorly done. The stand is a separate item, so take no notice of that, okay? But generally, as I say, we're having trouble with cameras, but today does seem to be working amazingly. Okay, so the instructions, very reminiscent of Airfix circa 1980s. So down on here, usual thing, we've actually got the kit parts. So you've got your sprues, easy location down on there, a little bit of how to model, and we are straight into the build. So as you can see down here, we've got the obligatory doing the wheel wells, different type of touch, starting with those, okay, and fitting those in. Opening up the holes, obviously very important on this one, because obviously you're not going to be able to fit the pylons without it. Fitting the actual wheel wells down into there, and also there are a little bit of strengthening work that goes to the rear. Okay, so once they're in that lower hull, okay, you can then work your way through. Two of the wings going to sandwich onto the top. It's not a one-piece top and bottom, so you have got to put the wings on there. The wing tips have got to go on as well. Then you've actually got the first stage compressor for the engines going down on in there. And as a side thought, you can actually put your weapons together right now. Down at the back end, obviously the MIG, as we all know, the cans, very important on these, so we'll be having a look, see how nicely detailed those are. Okay, so that's putting those on, and then we have got, looks like could be a nasty way of doing it, but we're not the usual sort of one-piece intake system. There's no slip molding in here, very traditional way of doing it, so we're going to have to pop those in. And then a couple of plugs, a little bit of detail work going down in those, fitting the other engine in there, tailplanes going on, side of the cockpit, which this has been mentioned to me. To be honest, a member got in contact with me and mentioned that it has got a very funny front end on it. Okay, and this is the way that they've got round of the different versions, that you actually put the cockpit in there like this, and then you've got the two outer parts are going to join in. They should follow the panel line, so it'll be interesting to see exactly what they do. Okay, and then down on here we've got the seats, as you can imagine, right the way through, your gear, your wells, the FOD deflector off the bottom, the lights going onto the gear wells, and then we're going in all important 5 gram of nose weight going down in there. The seat, control grips, electronics. Your pilot figure you can put in there, again, another nice touch. Instrument panel, top panel, and then obviously the windscreen, the iris sensor, okay, and then chucking it all in together, as you can imagine, putting all of those in. And I'm just wondering, are those FOD guards? Perhaps they're FOD guards. Be a nice touch if they are, because we've got them for the front. These are the blanking plates that go in front of the engines, and if they are, that's a lovely touch with the kit. Okay, and then onto the back. As we can see down on here, we've got a situation where we've got the fuel tanks being fitted, all three of those for the long-range ferry tanks, or you can do the mid-tanks with the, I think they're the Archer missiles on those. Okay, and then obviously bomb fit with, you know, different types of weapons fit and all the rest of it. The longer range missiles. Pilot figure, looks like he is on a little bit of a separate stand, which is quite a nice touch. Is that chocks? You actually get the chocks for it as well. Look at that. That's a beautiful little touch. Nice little touches down in here. I think this is separate. Yeah, not included with the model. That's your stand, so we're not worried about that. Canopy, pitot tube, the angle of attack sensors, things like that, all being fitted onto those. Decal placement, quite a few decals on this one, as you can imagine down in here. And it looks like we've got some type of camo pattern down on here as well. We'll have to check what they are actually, because I'm not even sure myself. So we'll have to see what they are. I assume they're just decal placements, and they're showing the carrier film on there as they're going to fit through. Alright, then you've got your actual call outs for your colours. So as I said, it's in Humbrol colours, but that's quite easy to change over. Again, it's almost back in time, shall we say, because you're doing this one and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking that's very much like the instructions as we saw years ago. Okay, so we've got the decals. If we bring the camera down now, okay, as we can see, a little bit thick, not too much of a problem. It's very hard to see what's going on because of this blue backing on them. I've got a couple of options down in there with the actual colour scheme. So we've got red 21, red 01, and white 51 down there, and then, you know, it is that usual way of doing it. I'm just trying to see. They all look beautifully in Regia. They are so small, it's quite hard to actually see them. But there's quite a lot of carrier film. But in this scale, I think it's the only way of doing it. They're not very pronounced. You can't really feel it with your hand or anything else like that. As you can see on these, they are pretty much all there. You know, no problem with that at all. Not too bad at all, I must admit. Okay, so that's those. Right, in the bag. In the bag. Okay. Okay, let's start with some of the bigger areas first. So down on here, as we can see, this is your first sprue. And as we can see down here, we've got some beautiful raised surface details. Now, this isn't the crispest and sharpest we've ever seen, but it is literally all here. I'm just looking around at some of these areas, some of these details down here, a little bit lumpy bumpy, but it is all there. Complete with a free bit of joining sprue. It is very nicely detailed. We've got different textures for obviously different materials which have been used actually on the real aircraft. So down on here you're quite textured at this panel and this panel, but the others are slightly smoother, which is a very nice touch. I don't know how well the camera is going to be able to show that up, but generally doesn't look too bad at all. This is the cockpit sights we were talking about, which do follow a panel line, but just an odd way of doing it. Instrument panel, the tail, these are one piece for the wingtips. Going to be going on there. There's no real sign of flash or anything else with these. They all look to be very nicely done. Okay, got no problems with any of this at all. They all look pretty good, if I'm honest. No problem with that at all. Again, it's one of those things. I'm looking at it, and the more you look at it, the more detail you actually see, and it does look all very nice, very fine detail on that. So very nice indeed. Okay, we've got the weapons. These look like they are one-piece cast missiles and bombs, obviously because it's scale. We are talking 72nd down in here. I wonder if we get this top cam even closer. Okay, there we go, that's a bit better. But as you can see, we've got no real flash absolutely anywhere. The nozzles themselves look to be pretty good. I must admit, these nozzles down on here, they're all there. All very nice indeed. No problem with that at all. I'm actually very impressed with the way that's moulded. The afterburner ring, no problem. Split two-piece wheels, hubbed internally, okay, and everything else like that. Even down to the seat is a very nice mould, no problem. FOD covers, so we have got full detailed FOD covers, front and rear. A nice touch if you want to hide away that engine. Okay, and these down here, these parts down at the end, as you can see, these are actually for the chocks. Again, another really nice touch. Something small that you'd think, yeah, a bit gimmicky. Actually, I don't think that's too bad. Match pair of sprues, obviously for your left and right, as you can imagine. Alright, so no problem with those. Okay, down to the slightly bigger bits. Okay, so this is your main section. Looks like a gingerbread man. Alright, okay, I'm not going to play. But generally, as you can see, some nice details. Okay, so we've got drop flaps, which is a nice positional thing on these. All the rest of it, all the details, beautifully done. I can't see any sink marks, no problems, or anything else with these. Very much a nice touch. I'm also just wondering, I'm just looking, the actual locating tabs for the pylons, I think, are in the same position as the actual real locking points as well, where they actually join the wing section. Nice little touch is this little guy down here. You've actually got the little mechanism where it joins the actual aircraft. Nice to see that in 1/72. And this texture is very nice all the way through, showing that intake as it would be down to the engines. All very nice and smooth. The wings, hopefully you can catch it in the light with the detail on there. Very nice indeed. No problem with that whatsoever. Again, all very nice stuff. Okay, so I have to say it genuinely looks really, really nice. If you notice we're a little bit darker today, it's because we have turned off one of the lights just to see if we can pick up some more of the panel lining. I was worried that the camera, because we don't get much shadow on it, doesn't show the panel lining details, but hopefully you can see it under there. And obviously up here you can see where all the holes are going to have to go in. Again, very nicely done. Okay, then we got the actual doors for the intakes, the gear, and the externals. Even the outside doors, there's no real detail to them, which I think there would be, but there's no ejector pin marks on it either, so that's quite a nice touch. Okay, last up we have of the big sprues, we've got the nose, which all important nose. Let's face it, many a kit has got the nose shape wrong. Be interesting to see from our MIG-29 experts out there if that is the correct shade and shape and everything else. The intakes, again, beautifully detailed. I think the biggest thing I'm going to come away from this kit is the level of detail with the panel lining and all things like that are absolutely exquisite, very nicely done. And then hopefully you can see in all these small parts, no sign of flash or any evident problems with any of them whatsoever. Some of them have obviously taken a little bit of a knock like this guy, but I wouldn't be worried about that. That'll strengthen out. But even on the blind side, very nice. We've got no ejector pin marks down these intakes. Okay, you're going to have a whacking great seam in it, but, you know, from an ejector pin mark, at least I haven't got any of those. Got a few little ones just down in here, unfortunately, but generally, I must admit, very impressed with all of that. So, down to our pilot figure and our little clear parts. Okay, let's go into clear parts first. Now, this is 72nd. We've spoken about clear parts at length a lot recently, purely because of obviously the problems you can have with the smaller scales. It's a thicker glass and everything else by dipping it and stuff like that. This one already, if I'm honest, I don't know how well the camera's going to pick this up. It looks like it's got a yellow hue to it. It does look like there's a small tiny bit of yellowing going on already, okay? But I have to say, the clarity of them, considering their scale, is very nice, and we don't have a centre seam running through them or anything else like that. So generally, I have to say, I quite like it. That's actually a very nice job down there. Last up, crew figures. So we got standing, which is a lovely little touch to see a little crew figure standing, or you can have him seated, and he's got his visor down and his hands are out, opposable hands, obviously one on the grip and sitting down. I'm not going to go into what that bit is at the back there. Not quite sure if it's anatomically correct, but what the hell is that? Okay, so never mind. Perhaps it was a clenching mission or something, but it's nice to get a little base crew figure and obviously him seated in there. Looks pretty good, no problem at all. A little bit of seam work obviously to take care of, but obviously we are in this scale. So there we go. It is a beautiful little kit. At the end of the day, 72nd stuff. I think, if I'm honest, if give me, say 5 years ago, I'm thinking it was going to be a death nail into this stuff. It seemed to be 48th because things seem to have moved on. Whereas before, everything was 72nd or 48th. Mainstream. Then it sort of turned around to be more 48th, 32nd, and it seemed to be bigger was better and everything else. And unfortunately, a lot of the 72nd scale stuff got left behind. And then through me banging on, and there's a lot of campaigning, 72nd stuff obviously is cheaper. It's good for the kids coming into the hobby, and because obviously they're quicker builds and everything else. But now we're getting a throwback to it because we seem to be getting hyper detailed, very nicely done kits in 72nd, especially the Russian stuff. I'm not quite sure why Russian stuff suddenly had this thing, but we're finding Spitfires, cars now, Mustangs and all the rest of it, the manufacturers, those big players in the industry, have gone back and are redoing them because there is obviously a good gap in the market now. And that is being filled very quickly, because I think now that the kits are coming out, which are very nicely done, they're not going to take up much room, they're slightly cheaper to do, and everything else like that, with all the perks you would get traditionally from a 48th. So it does seem to be that all those details and extras you got with the 48th kit you didn't with the 72nd, detailed cockpits, nice engines, high level of detail on the surface, things like that, now is a standard feature with 72nd stuff, whereas 48th has its place now and 32nd, but it's nice to see that it's not been overlooked. So there we go, that is the Zvezda 1/72nd scale MiG-29.